Welcome to Right There With You, where we lean into life's biggest questions, challenge what we know, and discover the strength we've had.
This is my dear friend and co-host, Ciarra Jones, theologian and lifelong explorer of faith, identity, and purpose.
And say hello to my co-host and buddy, Cass Cooper, a professional chaos whisperer who loves untangling the complexity of human relationships.
Here we embrace the journey, no matter how uncertain, messy, or transformative it gets.
And no matter where you are on yours, we're right there with you.
Hello, hello, hello. Ciarra, my friend. How are things? What's going on?
What's going on?
Oh, a lot.
You start, because I don't even know what's going on with me, so you go ahead.
Well, okay, so, I'm a big news junkie. The world is still on fire. I've been paying attention to this, the whole, there's just so many things that are just being thrown at us all the time with news and updates and so I'm trying really hard to stay engaged as a good global citizen should and would and could, while not getting overwhelmed with the influx of instability that we currently are experiencing with our government. And so it's been really kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie, I had a day this week where I was like, I'm just gonna not do anything and I'm gonna lay in bed, and I paid for it the next day because I had a lot of work that I had to catch up on, but I just felt bogged down, but then I also realized, am I depressed, or do I just need a shower and to get my hair done?
We're in nap, okay? Because sometimes we're feeling sad, you actually just need a nap. I think that, as Jada Smith would say, we need to talk about the political and social state of the world right now. And it's been I think we can just underestimate how porous we are and how much what's happening in the world does sit with us. It sits with us deeply, So I'm wondering how, when all this is going on, you're maintaining joy, you're maintaining your well-being. You are, just maybe finding a little magic around you in your everyday life.
Yeah. So, well, tonight I'm going to get a facial, right? So, and I actually scheduled that a month ago. So past me was looking out for future me. Shout out to her. And so so there's that. Also, I'm purging some stuff from my house. I'm having a yard sale. Hopefully it doesn't rain tomorrow. So I'm just trying to re-up and revamp my space and make my house my own. We have an introduction, and hi, come on in.
What we got going on here? What's going on?
Come on, camera.
We have our youngest and wisest member of the pod.
Our youngest and widest member of the podcast. Come on, we're recording.
Did you say whitest or wisest?
Wisest. There, come on.
Wisest.
Come on. Say hi to the people.
Hi.
What's up, Lorelai? What up? How's it going?
We're actually recording. Do you want to be on the podcast?
We are recording.
This week?
Yeah.
Do you want to answer our check-in question?
Yeah. Go hit her.
We'll answer it? All right. Where are you finding a little bit of magic or a little bit of joy in your life right now? Cheer? Okay. She's a world star cheerleader too.
What about cheer is bringing you joy? Because the season's almost over, sister. You got one more competition.
Tons.
Yeah. Insert video of Lorelai here because she is really doing great. I was watching you yesterday at practice doing your front walkover.
What's a front walkover?
What's a front walkover?
Okay,
another mic.
You have to put your, it's like a back walkover, but forward.
So what's the first thing you do?
You put your hands on the ground and then you flip over.
Yeah, you flip into a handstand and then you go back into a back bend and then you stand up. Yeah. So we're mastering that level because then we can do back handspring. And then what's your goal for next year?
Back tuck.
Or
front tuck, at least.
Yep.
One time in my life, I rolled on the ground. That's as much as I can. So you are so far beyond me. I think one time I did a little, I didn't know you can call that, a little tumble. That's all I did.
What do you call that? A forward roll, jump forward roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. What else is bringing you joy? Anything? Watching your shows?
Yeah. And Dad.
And Daddy. Oh, I love that.
Today me and Daddy are going to.
That's going to be so fun.
When he picks me up, we're going to.
That's going to be so fun. You're going to have the best time. You want to go back and watch your show then? You want to ask Ciarra the question?
What's bringing your joy to your life? What's the most joyous thing in your life?
Oh, the most joyous thing. Lately I've been learning, like when I was younger, fun things would just happen. Cause like maybe I had school field trips or maybe I had this plan with my friends or that plan with my friends. Like it was kind of like preset in my life. And now I have to make my joy. So lately I've been like planning out things I really like. Like I'm gonna go visit my girlfriend's friends soon. We're gonna go to LA for a baby shower. I'm really excited about that. I'm about to go back to LA for my brother's birthday. Today I'm gonna go to a workshop, actually by Princess Hemphill on embodiment and becoming the people. Lately I've been like planning a lot of events that bring me happiness, like kind of focusing on my life outside of work, and that's been bringing me a lot of joy.
Okay.
Anything else you
That's a
want
good
to say?
question, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I like your
Yeah.
puffs.
What's your most joyous thing?
Oh, we did do
Yeah.
mine. Well, right now I'm really enjoying making the house on my own and kind of. Oh no, definitely you. Absolutely, you're the most joyous thing in my life. That goes without saying, sister.
Yeah, what is it?
That goes without saying. You're my bestie and as the restie. You're better than the rest.
That's right.
Can I go eat?
All right, go have a snack. Love you. Bye.
Bye. She is so sweet. Oh my
She's like,
goodness.
not me.
Yeah. Also, for our listeners, Lorelai plays no games. Okay.
None.
That
None.
girl is focused. She executes her life with perfection. And also, she'll give you some feedback about what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Appreciate
Correct.
that.
Correct. Correct. I'll never forget. I was trying out some new hairstyles and I took her with me to get my hair done. And I got bangs cut. It was like the first time in years I had got bangs and I wasn't sure about it. And I turned around in the chair and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, she was like, they're just not full enough. And then my stylist was like, you know what? She's kind of right. She cuts a few more to make them like fuller. I was like, oh my God.
Having the eye for hair, for like hair and stuff too. All right. Kids will
Listen,
keep it real with you.
keep it 100, keep it a buck. Okay. So I love that we did our check-in. I'm really glad that you're finding joy and making time for joy. Because yeah, that's good. So what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about what is blooming, what is dying in our lives, talking about death, birth, renewal. I actually have a phoenix tattooed on me because I really believe in cycles of rebirth. And if you follow any of my work online, you know that for me, like, gardening is where I find God, gardening is where I find divinity. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of questions about your relationship to
Woo.
nature and gardening and the earth. Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
So I actually want to ask you, our times of gardening, we often think about plants and beautiful flowers. As in my work, I actually think a lot about dirt, soil, the foundation of a garden. So I want you to talk about your relationship with the dirt and what it means for you to be in the dirt and the soil of your life. And what does dirt and soil mean to you?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm actually allergic to dirt. Like I went and did an allergy test and that's like the one thing that I'm allergic to is like dirt and pollen and like mold and rot and all that stuff, which I think there's a metaphor there for life somewhere, but the funny part about it is I actually really enjoy digging in the dirt and I've always like been a Girl Scout, like I'm a lifelong Girl Scout. And being outside is someplace where I find a lot of grounding. And I think like there's something about like getting your hands dirty and clearing space where there's overgrown things. When I first bought my house, that was one of the things like there were garden beds in the backyard, but they hadn't been like tended to. And so getting back there and
Oh,
pulling out the weeds and like making it like a fresh like landscape was actually like very satisfying. And yeah, and like there's something about like I made this or like I used my hands to like reconfigure a space, right?
mm,
Like I
yeah.
really and I do really enjoy that. It's just my sinuses won't allow it as much as I would like. But
That's fair. But I
yeah.
love that, like that idea of like, getting into, I don't know, like I think dirt is beautiful because it's tactile. Like you said, it's something that we get into, we can feel, I don't know, we feel into the process. Like, my mom and I plant a garden every summer. And my favorite part is like all we do to prepare the dirt and the soil. I made a video about this recently, but we planted our winter garden and like we like fertilized the soil with like dead leaves. It made me think so much about like how what is dead actually fertilizes like what can become in our lives. And it's
Mhm.
just, I think that sometimes in gardening, folks don't know how much is done around soil health and how that like becomes a foundation of something being healthy. And I used to read a book called Lessons from Plants. I love this book. I talk about it so much in my work. And something I learned from her is like how much plants communicate through the soil, their root systems, how they connect with nutrients. And I don't know. I just think that we think it's like not important work to tend to the dirty, difficult parts of our life, but there's so much that grows from that. It's the foundation
Yeah.
of who we are.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
I years ago I used to like container gardening, or like I just really like the idea of like multiple plants in a container. And I had gotten these really beautiful flowers that were already in bloom. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'll just get some dirt, put it in there, and then it'll be done or whatever, right? And so I took dirt out of the yard, and because I had, again, cleaned out all that space and all that stuff to put the different beds, and then I just put it in the thing. And I didn't realize that I had these like slugs that were like actually very beneficial to like the grass, but they were
Yes.
detrimental
I've had those slugs.
to the plant that I put in there. And so I'm like thinking like, oh my gosh, I bought a plant that had like these disease and all this stuff, and it's like dying and rotting from the bottom up. And I didn't realize that it was just not the right type of soil. Like I'm
Mm,
thinking like dirt is dirt. And so now when I do it, I'm like, okay, I need to be specific about putting the right compost and like making my own, like I made my own plant mix for the like potted plant mix for the first time. Like I got the perlite and the bark and the, fertilized soil and like mixed it all together. And I had never done that before. And so I think the idea of, I thought there was something wrong with the plant
mm,
and didn't realize there was something not beneficial to the dirt. And
yes. Come on.
the dirt was beneficial to other plants, right? Because that was what was making my lawn flourish, right?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Like when I think about one, yeah, first of all, I had a slug infestation like a year ago in my garden, and it was the worst experience. And like I staked out at night. Okay, I had like my flashlight headgear. I was trying to find these slugs, y'all. And I did. I was like, ha, ha, ha. But they ate all my
You
kale, they ate all my
conquer me, I will find you, slugs. I just have this image of you with like the camping light and like you're like got your lantern.
it was a stakeout, you know what I mean? But I learned so much from having garden pests, because garden pests suck, okay? But then sometimes I also think like how cool that I planted this thing and like I'm in a new relationship with the earth. I've drawn new insects and new things to me. And so I try to think about it as positively being a relationship with like pests. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I don't know.
But
I try
don't
to
you
think of
get frustrated? You
yeah.
put all that time and energy into it, and then this little sucker comes around and literally sucks the life out of all your work. Don't you feel frustrated?
Do, but I think like I said, gardening is like God to me. So every time something happens with my plants, I ask like, what broader lesson does this teach me about my life? Or like, and I think about like, what does it mean? Sometimes in my life, for example, I plant something, like literally I plant something. Maybe I want a new job. So I'm like planting a seed for a new job, or I don't know, I want a new car. So I'm working towards that. And like, maybe it doesn't work out. Like in my past, I would come into a very shaming place, but like when I plant something in my garden and pests come to it, like I often think like, well, I didn't know how to navigate this pest, or this is like an outside factor I couldn't control. And so it makes me think a lot more about every time something happens in my garden, I notice that like the softest response emerges in me. And I ask like, how do I have this type of softness and this type of forgiveness and openness in my own life? So I do feel frustrated when pests take over my garden, but usually I often think like, I get to learn something new here. Like, I don't blame myself for this not blooming. All of a sudden it becomes this mirror for how I can maybe be a little gentler in my life when things don't go according to plan or don't go the exact right way. And so I find that gardening is the only place that perfectionism isn't like my vice. And when I'm gardening, I'm like, okay, like this happened and that's okay. Let's try it again. Like, because there's always something else you can plant. Like, if that plant dies and is infested, there's a new thing I can plant. There's always another opportunity. And I think that's what's so exciting for me about gardening.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. Like I don't I honestly, I guess maybe because I'm newer to it and the discipline of it, and it just seems like so otherworldly, like it's something
Hmm.
like mysterious almost. Like I look at people, my neighbors have these beautiful rose bushes, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, but she's literally like out there like every day. It's like part of her routine, and I just don't have that yet, but I love the way that you think about it. Gives you a space to almost like make mistakes and like
Yes.
just kind of exist. And we don't really get a lot of spaces to do that, you know?
Yes. That's why gardening is so, I think, sacred for me as a Black woman, as a recovering fundamentalist. Like, it is where I feel like I get to, like I said, come into contact with my higher self, but also I think like the most true concept of divinity and the divine that
Mhm.
I've ever experienced. Like, one of my favorite things ever said about God comes from Our Lives Matter, a queer womanist theology by Pamela Lightsey. And she says, like, for queer people, God is experiential, not textual. We won't just know God from reading the Bible. We have to feel into God and experience God, because oftentimes even the God of the Bible is explained in a way that can be very patriarchal and white supremacist. So it's difficult to connect. But if we drop into experience, there's something there. And I think when I'm gardening and my hands in the dirt and the soil, it's like this whole full body experience of this divine presence that really, I don't know, helps me just reimagine who God is. And I think even coming back to the dirt a little bit, like I even think about like dirt and soil as like almost like an allegory for our like intuition and like being connected to the deepest parts of our own experience. And like as a queer person, that's such a returning to the self. I've learned to be homophobic or internalize homophobia. I've learned all these negative messages about myself. So I just feel like every step of gardening, whether I'm in the soil or pruning a plant or my plant is dying from pests, there's some lesson about loving myself more, being gentle
Yeah.
to myself more. And I think, especially for Black women, I think gardening is a really beautiful place for us to practice unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional celebration of the self.
So when you got into gardening, that came from your mom, right? Or did you bring that to her? Like, how did gardening become such a part of your life?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. So my grandparents are like children of come from sharecropping families. They're both born in the these in Monroe, Louisiana, and my grandma's one of 13, my grandpa's one of 8, and they are married. They actually have a pair of siblings that are married as well. And my grandma passed recently, but she was the youngest of 13, and my grandfather is 94, and he is like the middle child of 8. Anyway, my grandfather is like I grew up with a master gardener. So he brought gardening to our family. Like when he came, when they, the Great Migration, he was forced into the draft. He was in Southern University. And then he was born in the 30s. So was he in the Vietnam War or the Korean War? I don't remember. But he
Maybe,
was in a war
yeah, he was in a war. Okay.
in the 50s. Whatever war was in the 50s, whoever's watching this and knows history about that.
Well, it all depends on where you start the history, because technically the Vietnam, as the daughter of a history major and historian, yeah, Vietnam War definitely started in 1945. I know that just because. But I think it's probably Korean War is what he was referencing. But yeah,
Let's go with that.
what is
So,
war? We're
I
at
don't know.
war
What is
right
it?
now. I don't know.
What is
That's
a
a
war?
whole nother conversation.
Absolutely. We're going to start singing, I believe the children are
God.
future. Anyway,
Listen, we as millennials have had that pressure put on us since that song came out. Like, we are the future and the future is here and we have not done well. So
we have not. We're actually suffering. This is like our 4th recession, so we're not okay. But anyway, my grandfather is like a master gardener. So he like I just grew up watching him garden all the time. And then like 20 years ago, even more than that now, he built this huge garden plot in my mom's backyard. And then it kind of got passed down to me. Like my brother started gardening. My brother's an incredible gardener. And then my mom started gardening in that plot. And then during COVID, I was just so bored over the summer. I was like, Mom, like, and we were like, why don't we fill this plot up? And so then about 5 years ago, she and I started an annual tradition of gardening together. And like, it's such a life-changing experience. So it actually comes from my grandfather and he still has the best green thumb in the family, but he brought it. And my favorite thing my grandpa always says to me, he says it to me now, like every time he sees me, the first thing he says is like, Ciarra, you're my friend. That's what he always says to me. And which I love. And like, I think that's how I feel like gardening is to all of us. I think gardening is just like a friend and a teacher for all of us. And I feel like he really taught me that, through his way of being, but also just through teaching us how to plant and tend to the earth, which is pretty cool.
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
beautiful. What a cool like history in your family of just connecting with the earth and stuff. And I think so many of us city folk whose parents came from, Detroit and Chicago. Well, I guess we're all part of the Great Migration anyway, because my people are from Georgia and Tennessee also, but we didn't have that. Like it's just, we're very, and so having that connection to the outdoors and to the land and is such a part of African tradition in general. And to, just really lean into that and to have that passed down from multiple generations that's really special. I'm really cool. I think I'm a little envious that you have that. I think I'm gonna name my jealousy. I can do that.
Yeah, nickname. Where
Yeah.
does that come from?
I think because, I almost wish that I had more of those connections and those threads to, all of my grandparents have passed. And so what I
Mm,
find out about them is just from like limited historical memory, or like photos and things like that. And my cousin is so good at knowing all the stories and stuff. And I just don't have that same connection. So I think it's really cool. And we didn't grow up close in proximity to my grandparents either. So we were in St. Louis and they were in Cincinnati. And so we didn't see them as often. It wasn't like so the idea of him coming to your mom's house and building something for her is like just not something that we experience and stuff. And then when I bought this house, my dad passed like shortly after I bought the house. And so I think, part of it is I expected him to be around to have that for Lorelai. And so like, yeah, I think a little bit of like, man, like what would it be like to have my grandfather and like have that connection? And
Mm,
I also am really working on naming what emotions could be perceived as negative, right? And
really good at
jealousy is one
yeah.
of those things of like we're not supposed to be jealous, and it's like I am jealous, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be mean to you because of it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Sometimes they say, like, I love that you named that. And I think that, like, just to give you your flowers, like, you're so good at naming difficult emotions. Something I say all the time is you've taught me so much about how not to be in shame. And I also learned that with how you are with your own humanity. I think, like, you have a really good compassion to yourself. And I think our world would be better if people would just name difficult emotions and if we made space for more people's difficult emotions.
Uh,
Something I always hear is like jealousy or envy just point us to our own desire. Like it's not about not wanting that person who we feel that towards to not have that. It's just like, oh, I want to cultivate that for myself. So I think it can also be a good emotion to help locate our own desire. So thank you for naming
yeah,
that. And I think a
yeah,
lot of folks feel that. I mean, even my mom, she didn't grow up with her grandparents, and I grew up with my grandparents as my neighbors for 20 years. So she'd even tell me, like, I'm so jealous that you get to know them and know my parents and have this relationship. And so I'm very lucky. I think one piece I wrote a long time ago was I talk a lot about finding God in my grandfather's garden, but I also talk about finding God in my grandmother's kitchen. And I think that just in general, God has come through my grandparents most clearly in my life. And as they passed away over time, my grandpa's never going to die, but as they passed away over time, it has been hard to cultivate that unconditional regard they had for me. But that's what I find in the garden or in the kitchen too. I am able
yeah,
to access that experience of being like, I feel like just as much as we can delight in our plants, I feel like our plants delight in us too. Like they're excited to see us and to be in relationship with us. And so that kind of brings me to my next question, which is like, what does it mean to you to see our lives as a garden? Maybe currently what's blooming in your life and yeah, what's coming up for you as you think about lives as a garden?
yeah. So, well, one, I love that we have the Patreon that's the community garden, right? I think that there's something so valuable to recognizing the importance of community as we
Mm,
grow, as we change, and having people who can reflect, like you just did, reflect our positive attributes to us. And we can look at people and say, man, I wish I could be more like that. And then being able to see how your friends and your community ebb and flow and grow through those things that you would like to be more akin to.
mm,
Right now in my personal garden, I think I'm really I finally get where I feel like I'm an adult. And I know that's like so weird to say
I get
uh
that.
at 43 because I've been an adult for a minute. I've lived on my own for a while, but now I do feel more like I'm growing and blooming in my adulthood, right?
Mm.
I feel very in touch with like my body, very in touch with my sexuality, very in touch with things I like and don't like. There's always room for continued growth, but I really do feel like those things are blooming in me, specifically too in my work and having joy in that and finding a source of creativity and strength. But I think that's because I have some really good foundational roots, right? Going back to the dirt conversation and unpacking the things and pulling out and teasing away the things that were not helpful to me has given me the space to flourish as an adult and to bloom as an adult.
Mm.
And that took a long time. I would say it took probably most of my youth to really unravel fundamentalism, which I'm still doing. We were joking about like all church girls can sing, and that really does come from a fundamentalist like space. So yeah, just really pruning and pulling back and deciding what was going to be healthy for me and having that deep rooted foundation that I really needed. And I think I didn't get I got some of as a child, but really in my like 20s and 30s was when I really tried to be purposeful about cultivating it so I could bloom as an adult.
I love that. And something you said I think is really profound is like, it made me think about when you talked like what is maybe like where does dirt sit within this garden metaphor of gardens are our lives? Like what is the dirt of our lives? And I think something I hear in your reflection is maybe when we're younger too, there's this focus on living a life that is like shiny. And I think as you get older, you realize like none of that matters if the foundation isn't good. And like that work is messy and dirty and it feels like it might be ugly, but there's so much that happens when we get into like the dirt in the deepest parts of our lives. And as your friend, I feel like I've seen you go through that process even the last couple of years, like really get deeply connected to yourself. And it also is very comforting to hear that at 43 you finally feel like an adult because I definitely don't feel like an adult. Like I'm at an age where, I'm 31. And I think there's this assumption like when you come to your 30s, like you're gonna have this aha. But for me, 30s has been a lot of shedding. And I think it's been a lot of one of my favorite columnists, her name is Ask Polly. And she recently had a really beautiful column called Do you prioritize status over joy was the question. And it made me think about my obsession with wanting to look like I'm blooming while like, negating some of the work of just being with the deepest parts of myself and holding those parts deeply and with care. And I name that to say, like, I feel like in my 30s, it's actually been a returning to like my inner child self and healing things that I didn't properly heal, revisiting trauma so I can live a more healthy, integrated life. And that has made me feel like almost going through a second adolescence of like, oh, I need to, everything I set up for my life. Actually, you sent me this video
Yeah.
where she said, like, like, sometimes we learn in therapy actually that we have to start over with our life or renew or reimagine. I think my 30s has been a lot of reimagining, which just made me feel sometimes like a child, like just learning how to walk on my adult legs again. Like some things that I created as a foundation in my 20s just don't fit anymore in my 30s. So I've had to just do some recalibrating and some reimagining. So it's helpful to hear. Maybe it'll be another 10 years till I feel that.
Yeah, and I think the advice I would give is realizing that your life is still happening while you're
Mm,
doing those things, right? And
mm,
it's not to say that it's all hard work and all that and
mm.
therapy and like unpacking trauma. I've had so many great, amazing, joyous, community driven experiences for myself while I'm doing that unlearning. And I think
Yeah.
likening it to the garden metaphor, right, is different plants have different times a year you're supposed to, plant them, right? We're not planting potatoes year round, like, or we're planting them in the spring and pulling them up in the fall, or there's like the difference between perennials and annuals and like all these different parts of gardening and playing in the dirt in general. Or sometimes you don't plant anything and it's just like, so I used to work at a park and it was, let me cook it, I'll land it, I promise. So I used to work at a park and it used to just be so funny because for the entire month of May, they would take up all the grass. They would peel back and it was nothing but dirt. And then they wouldn't let anybody on the dirt, right? Because it was a public park. It had this really expensive endowment. It's in the middle of the city. And it was so crazy to me and at the time because I'm like, why are we pulling up? Like, this is a place where people are supposed to play and have community, and it's supposed to be this place, right? But I sat down and talked to the groundskeeper, and he's like, no, we have to do that in order to create a space that is ripe so that we can have grass the other 11 months of the year. And so he intentionally left it vacant and barren and just dirt so
Mm.
that he could grow grass to have the other 11 months. And I think our lives are so much like that, right? Like there's some times where you literally have to either sit still, have nothing, spend less, be in that kind of what feels like a barren thing, but it actually has purpose,
Hmm.
right?
Yet 1,000%. I think one, like we in a capitalist society, I think the myth that we tell is that like we can just bloom or produce in perpetuity. Very rare do plants do that. We do have evergreens, but most plants bloom and die. Like there's a intentional season of rest. And we see it in animals too, whether it's seasons of hibernation or changing behavior as the seasons change. I guess only part of nature that requires perfectionism of itself or constant production of itself is human beings. And if we
Woo!
actually
Wait, wait,
learn
wait,
from
wait, wait. Go back. The only part of nature that requires perfectionism of itself is
it
human
is
beings.
human beings, yeah, or in constant production, we're like actually working against what natural systems theory would tell us about how we should behave or how we should see ourselves. One of my favorite books in the world is Braiding Sweetgrass. And she says, like, through indigenous thought, like, we are seen as the little brothers and little sisters of nature because we have so much to learn from how nature behaves, but we don't often see nature as our own teacher. And I think something I talked about a lot in the pod is like, I went through a really difficult year last year. Cass helped me so much. And something that I think about all the time is like, for gardens to be healthy, you have to prune them. Like for example, tomato plants, they will become unruly and they won't grow or produce as much fruit unless you prune them. And our lives are the same thing. Like we go through seasons of shedding and pruning and renewal. And when I think about gardening as a metaphor for my life, I think about what I learned from the changing seasons, what I learned from pruning my tomato plants. Like something I think that's so beautiful about pruning is oftentimes in our lives, and this is about fundamentalism does this a lot. Like we have these radical ways that we give our life to Christ, and then we want to make all these huge sweeping changes. And like we see change as this big sweeping event that's impressive and everyone sees it and they're all applauding. But like, for example, if you prune a plant, it actually only will heal if you prune it a little bit at a time. If I go to my tomato plants and I hack the whole thing, I've actually disrupted this thing's ability to heal and change and grow. And so I think plants remind me so much about my own life. Change is a methodical process, being in gentle relationship with myself during times of transition, being gentle with myself when seasons of change, understanding that death is a part of rebirth and being in healthy relationship with grief. Like I think if we pay attention to plants, I think they really become a guide of how we healthily are in relationship with ourselves and how we can have more realistic expectations of what it means to live like a joyful embodied life. That's why like plants help me share my perfect. Plants do everything for me. Okay, plants are, I guess.
The question I want to leave that we'll pick up on the next one
Close this out. Yeah.
is what experiences have pruned you in a way that was helpful and then in a way that may have been too radical or may have been harmful? I think that's kind of like what we can come back to, because I think knowing you, there's some stories, and I know I have some stories that could help some folks. But we always close out with our other question of like sacred descent. So am I asking you or are you asking me?
I want to ask you because I was talking a lot and I want to hear from my friend, my wise friend. So
sacred descent. Go ahead, tell me.
okay. So one, I want to ask as we close out, because something that I love about gardens is every large plant comes from like a seedling. And when they're in the seedling stage, you have to really protect their growth. And so I want to ask, like, maybe what's a seedling in your life right now that you're nurturing and how are you protecting that small space of growth?
What I hear is you're asking me into vulnerability, which you know I like love and hate at the same time. A seedling that I'm protecting right now is I'm just gonna put it out there. Okay, so the seedling that I'm protecting right now is my relationship that I am partnered, and it's a very new understanding of myself. And so I think I'm really just protecting my queerness and protecting like what that means to me, holding it close to me. I haven't really, like, I would say the people that I've come are invited in. I don't like the term coming out. The people that I've invited into that space have been very strategic and very purposeful, but it's not something that I'm like talking about publicly or giving a lot of air to. But I feel like I'm finally in a relationship where, to your point, like the little tiny seedlings are building into making me a better and best version of myself. So I'm very like holding it very like dear and like being very gentle with it. Also because they don't like being public. They're just not an out public person. Yeah, like couldn't find them on social media if you wanted to. So, and I am. So I gotta kind of be honoring of that.
Partner. Sorry to the ladies out there trying to swoop up my friend, okay? She is partner. You can't have this beautiful as a woman, okay?
Lord bless it, bless it. Thank you for calling me beautiful and intelligent. I appreciate
Oh my
it.
gosh, that's stunning.
I know. I'm kidding. Hey, listen, I am not above a good compliment. All right.
It just you deserve them. It's deserved.
You did too,
Oh,
Fred.
it's truth. And just seeing who you are. I think that's so beautiful. And I think great partnership reminds us that the areas of our life that don't get applause are worthy of it. That like moment that like maybe we used to respond defensively, but now we're being open and vulnerable. Or that moment where usually we could have a shame perspective, but we're being kind to ourselves. When a partner can say like, hey, I see you growing or changing a little bit, like That is so, I think, profound. We're definitely going to do a part 2 to this. We're going to talk about how we understand death and decay. We're going to talk more about dirt. We're going to talk more about pruning. We're going to talk about what is blooming in the blooming process. But something I want to leave our listeners with is a quote from Braiding Sweetgrass. And as I mentioned, I love it. And this quote is, "The land knows you even when you are lost." And in my deepest moments of confusion, my deepest moments of disconnection, I always go back to nature. I really recommend that book. I also mentioned Lessons from Plants by Rhonda Montgomery, because she talks so much about what plants teach us. But I want to say, like, if there's, those that are listening that are feeling disconnected or not grounding, take off your shoes and put your feet in the dirt. Go put your hands in a community garden. Go connect with nature, because it is our greatest teacher and our greatest friend. And it teaches us so much about the seasons of our life. And something that I love about nature is there's actually nothing that we've experienced that nature hasn't experienced too. Nature experiences colonial violence, genocide, loss. It's a victim of it as well. And so there's nothing that we don't experience as humans, even sickness. So I think just remembering that plants have a lot to teach us because they experience the things we do too. I think that I see them through the same lens I see our humanities. We're going to pick this up
Absolutely.
next week.
We're going to pick this up next time.
Yes.
And we'll see you in the Patreon. Don't forget, we've got journal entries and all of that stuff. So thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Kat.
If today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more people find this space of exploration and connection.
And if you want to go deeper, support us on Patreon. Your membership helps us keep these conversations going, and it gives you access to exclusive content.
Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a community. And no matter where you are on your journey, we're right there with you.